So all of the village-based approvals are completed, and so what we're waiting on right now is building permits to be, well, building plans to be stamped by an architect and submitted to the village for our review. And then I believe he's also waiting on some of the permits that are issued by the federal government. And so that process takes a long time, so he's been working on that process for quite some time. He's just kind of on the tail end of that. Um, Actually, from what I've been told, one of the final things that they have to do is inspect the what do you call it, like the vats with all the beer in it. It's in an area not too far from the existing Oso Brewing Company, not too far from Great Northern. You really start to create this destination place for craft brewing, craft distilling. And that is a huge driver of some local economies, and so anytime we can get that attraction-based facility within the village limits, does wonders to bringing tourism, whether it be daily or overnight visitors, to the area, and then creates another neighborhood watering hole, if you will. So that'll be nice to have. I think that this area as a whole is um, not just the village of Plover, but the city and Portage County as a whole is looking for more of that craft beer, craft spirit type of economy. Um, just because it's a place to go to have a few beers with friends, and in fact, from an economic development perspective, I mean, I don't know how many conferences I've gone to where we talk about the craft brewing industry and what it's done to some small communities. I think of the city of Wausau, significantly larger than the village of Plover and even the city of Stevens Point, and they've got probably 4 or 5 breweries within that city, and so I don't think it's a saturation. I think that it'll do very well here in the village, and that we will draw folks from Stevens Point, from Amherst, from outside of just the village of Plover to this facility. The village staff with the village of Plover negotiates with the developer, and when we're comfortable with what we've done and how we've negotiated a developer incentive, we then take it to the village board in a closed session, and we discuss the options. We discuss what we're offering, what we're expecting from the developer, and we present to them at that time a completed or a development agreement that is ready to be completed. Village board at that time can choose to exercise staff's recommendation and approve the development agreement, which includes the development incentive payment, and all the other conditions that we would set forth, like things like minimum assessed value, timeline for typical incentive payback, things of that nature. And so if the village board accepts the staff recommendation and approves the development agreement, we would then come out of closed session, approve that at next week, Wednesday's village board meeting, and then we would be ready to go for that developer to submit their building plans and for site plan review to go through plan commission. We don't have a name for it yet. A lot of that information, we're hoping we'll have the development agreement solidified by next week. Hypothetically, if they broke ground this fall, they'd probably be looking at a late spring, early summer opening.
Okay.
Yeah, projects of that magnitude do take, typically 8 months to a year to complete. Well, what the village had previously was kind of this arbitrary process in which, you've got to go through the planning commission, your neighbors have to get notified that you're putting a roof mounted solar on your property, there's a public hearing, there's conditional use. And state statute really limited what we could enforce or put as a condition on that process of getting solar technology on like a roof. And so what that did was, it's no longer conditional use, it's permitted in all zoning districts if the solar system is roof mounted. It streamlines the ground mounted system process, so as long as you meet the minimum setbacks for accessory structures within the village, that's pretty much approved administratively, and it really, at the end of the day, helps encourage and reduces red tape for solar technology within the village, and that's what the Soul Smart community was trying to accomplish. So, the village has just updated our website. So one of the final requirements that we had was to have what's called a solar landing page on our website, that just provided some general information on solar technologies, what the process is, trying to really streamline it for residents and for businesses. And so that's what we've done, and so that actually went live today, our website did. And so that was a nice addition. So we are ready to submit, just in the, just under the gun here. Everything was due on the 15th of August, so we are, fingers crossed, fully done with it. The village has received our the submittal for the Swiderski Townhome development. So that's going to be a 40-unit townhome on the corner of Foremost and Plover Road. That will be going to Plan Commission on Monday for site plan review. It continues to identify that rental market still being in demand in this community, which is big. It's a market that has been pretty much untouched by other municipalities. The city of Stevens Point hasn't had this kind of apartment development. The village of Whiting obviously hasn't, and so the village of Plover, identifying that more or less missing middle of housing, has been very strong this year in apartment development. With the 120 unit apartment project out on Pleasant Drive west of Highway R on the old Tree Acres area. That was huge. The now 40 unit townhouse development that will go through Planning Commission on Monday. 160 units that could come on by spring of 2020 is a substantial number of new units in the village. So, Shopko Optical is going into Crossroads Commons. So they're taking up 2 tenant spaces in the same building that houses AT&T, just west of the Kohl's parking lot. And so they're under construction right now, making very good progress, and should be opening very shortly. There's a new Mexican restaurant going into the old Christian's Bistro. Tulum is what it's called, which is a chain based out of, I believe, Indiana, Oklahoma area. July of 2019, we've got 29 single family residential homes. The permits have been issued for 6 duplexes, the 120 units of apartments, and our value through 2019 is about 35.5 million.
Wow.
This time in 2018 we were at about 12.3 million. So it definitely, it's been an increase in development in the village. Land's been selling for about 10,000 an acre. To these folks, these single-family home developers, who've been developing in the village for the last 3-4 years, and so that's definitely been a driver. The Century building, this is how the city and the village are really hand in hand. The new Century building, they've brought in a lot of new employees to the area, and so those employees and their families have to be housed somewhere. We're seeing a lot of this. The single-family housing market sustained because of Century and their expansion.
Yeah.
If and when Delta Dental goes through and they build a new facility within the city of Stevens Point, we will see the residual effects of that expansion within the village of Plover as well.